We're having problems again with the streaming, but greetings and welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host Rashid, and without further ado, I want to bring in our guest, who was a captain in the Serbian armed forces, the Serbian army, and is Mike Mihajlovic. I gotta say to him, Mike, thank you for joining me again on this platform.
My pleasure, Rashid. Hello, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good, Mike. I want to jump right into it. I know time is of the essence, so what is
Yeah,
going?
I'm a bit tight with time today. I have maximum 50 minutes.
Yes,
So,
yes, I know time is of the essence. So I just want to say, I want to ask you, what is going on in Georgia? Is there another color revolution that the United
color
States?
revolution. I mean, simply the government doesn't want to have any influence. They doesn't want to limit. The government want to limit the influence of the foreign media, and they want that all of foreign influencers disclose their financing. But it's a classic. I would call that typical classic color revolution. I don't know how it's going to end, but it will be really really tough.
Mhm. I see that one of Saakashvili's former party members have been arrested in Georgia
Yeah.
with the demonstration. Now, Mike, why would people get angry over that bill when it's for the people to understand and know foreign influence and foreign funding of groups and leaders?
Follow the money. Who is paying for that? Yeah, very simple. Follow the money and where that money is coming from. So it probably coming from some common sense or maybe black funds. Who knows? So people are some of those protesters are genuine. They want really to keep whatever is now. Some of them were paid to do that. The same thing happened in Ukraine. Some of the protesters were on Maidan. They really wanted changes. Some of them were nationalists, fascists, Nazis. Some of them were paid for that. But again, follow the money and you will see where is the source. And I would say it probably is somewhere in Brussels.
Mhm. Well, I see color revolutions being inspired by the U.S. and NATO all the time.
Yeah.
Why are these leaders willing to put their countries in hawk or in pawn
Mhm.
just to get a few dollars? They see the example of what's going on in Ukraine.
Mhm.
They saw what happened when the first so-called color revolution happened and the war between Russia and Georgia,
Yeah.
and they're seeing what's going on with every one of the people, every one of the nations that get in bed with the West. Why would First of all, why would they do that? And then why would the people bag them in doing that?
Well, again, money is the key. So the key people, they will get their bank accounts filled. They will got positions like in Ukraine, so that they can influence the outcomes of bids or anything that can get them more money. It's a greediness, a pure greed of those who want to get on power. The masses, the ordinary people, they I understand that they're frustrated by and with the situation. I was the same in Serbia. I thought that once when the democracy finally come, it will be better. It will be honey and milk all around. We will all have our jobs. But you know what happened from the bad, it turned into worse because corruption was blossoming, and that's the reason why I simply said, okay, enough is enough. I'm done with that crap. If I want to simply to get out, because I can't change anything. We were simply deceived by those who got their possessions. They filled their pockets. So basically, a situation like that is everywhere in the Eastern Europe, and not only in the Eastern Europe. It's in North Africa, uh, Asia. So everything is orchestrated from one source. They're playing with on disinformation ticket because they brainwash people. Look at the media. Today's no, even I stopped watching news on TV because they're ridiculous. They're simply ridiculous. I can't hear anything new. Now, even on the TV, even if you watch the weather forecast,
Yeah.
you may ask yourself, hey, is this really correct, or is this really true, or maybe they're playing with that as well. So the only thing that now that I'm watching TV is the weather and sports. At least, and but no, not the top sports, because corruption is there. For instance, I like to watch football or soccer in the States, but those some like a second league or third league. So South take on a German third league. At least those guys are not corrupted. They're playing the honest game. Everything else, above else, from the sport to government, is corrupted. And even politicians, even they spit on each other in the parliament. Behind the scene, they're the best buddies.
Yeah. Well,
And
we,
that's
we
the
see that
reason why
also.
everything suits me. Yeah.
We see the same play being played by the United States and NATO everywhere. And like when we turn to Armenia, for instance,
Mhm.
why hasn't there been backlash from the Prime Minister of Armenia, who is trying to steer Armenia towards the U.S. bloc and is turning his back on a tried and true tested ally like Russia?
Well, Armenia is playing on the edge, on the knife edge. They're too weak. They're surrounded by enemies, basically. Their only friend is to call friend. It's Iran on the south. Now, if Armenia, the moment when they get out from the Commonwealth of Independent States or that security organization, they will be attacked, and they can't resist. Azerbaijan is financially much stronger, militarily much stronger. So Mr. Pashinyan is trying to play double role, but if he break his relationship with Russia, he's finished. The West is going to do nothing. They will send only verbal strong support. This is what the Western government do. What for instance, French government, British government, they want crisis because they live on the crisis. They think about the leeches and sucking the blood. So to thrive those kind of governments, they need to have a crisis anywhere in the world. Doesn't matter is it Africa, Asia, or Europe. Closer to Russia, better for them,
Yeah.
because that will in their opinion, that will be simply taking off Russian resources. So in any case, from the West, Pashinyan can only expect sincere moral support. Everything or anything above that is utopia. Doesn't exist.
Do you think that America is purposely and NATO is purposely trying to light the planet of flame or fire because they're losing their influence, they're losing their power? If you look to, like I said, the Central Asian states, you look to Asia, the new
Yeah.
bloc, a power bloc. Then you look to Africa, and the African nations are tired of being occupied and talked down to by the
Exactly.
West, and they're
Yes.
pushing them out, and they're inviting the Russians in to train and arm them.
Mhm.
Do you think that America and NATO are saying, if we can't rule, we're going to just set the whole world afire?
It's turning that way. It's really turning that way, because for instance, what is the most important industry in North America and Europe? It's a military industry. It's a military industrial complex. So, for them to thrive, to generate jobs for people, they need a war. Not one. They need multiple wars everywhere. More wars, better for them. So the whole set is going toward that. Everything is moving in that direction. More wars, better for military industrial complex, better for the donations, better for all of that stuff that the greedy politicians are getting. So European Union is, but bear also in mind that no matter how strong production in that case they have, they're lacking something. They're lacking raw materials. They're lacking energy. Not because they can find it, but it's getting too expensive, and inflation is going to basically bury those countries. Look how much the prices are now. I see in Canada, the prices are 30%, 30% up with everything. So that is the biggest issue. People are simply unhappy with that. But you have a media that brainwash people all the time. So for some other reasons, so that we have to support Ukraine or support whatever country. More crisis is definitely better for the certain category of people. Peace is simply not work with them. That will be the shortest way. I mean, we can talk about that this subject for hours. But wars generate income for military-industrial complex and generate income for the particular warmongers, which are sitting in the parliaments or congresses or senates or whatever organization is named. So that is the biggest issue, and the ordinary people are just pawns. They have to go out, they have to protest, they will get beaten or they will get paid to do that, whatever. But nobody will ask the small man for anything. Small men only need to pay taxes and to die for any kind of reasons for the sake of those on the top.
I put this up on the screen. I want you to listen to this for a minute. This was an excerpt of an interview that I did maybe a month and a half ago, and this is what he has to say about NATO and America and the system. I just want you to listen to this real quick.
Yeah. Okay.
Ordinary person and ordinary business in the country, and I'm not in the United States, but the same principle applies everywhere. We could all get along really well, trade with one another, because there's stuff I would like to buy from American businesses, and there is stuff that American people would like to buy from, France, Croatia, China, wherever. And in that case, we could simply live in peace and trade with each other. And, if somebody spent too much and produced too little, their currency would get punished, their credit rating would get punished, exporting countries would be hesitant to, export their goods to them because they would worry about getting paid and so forth. And then that country would have to maybe tighten the belt and improve their production or reduce their imports and basic economic policy. The problem is that what you and I think about these things and the way you and I would deal with these problems is not the same when it comes to the imperial factions, which are basically the very narrow networks of powers that are clustered around the global banking cartel and the mega corporations that have grown up around them. Now, banking and empire usually go together, particularly the kind of banking and the kind of monetary system that we have in place today. And I'll try to explain in as simple terms as I can think of it. Basically, today's monetary system is, we have fiat currencies backed by nothing other than, trust and confidence. And we have fractional reserve banking, okay? All the money that goes into circulation represents debt. If there were no debt in the system, there would be no money in the system, zero, not a single dollar. And so for any money to be in circulation, somebody has to go into debt. Debt becomes assets on the books of the banks. So the banks, your debt is bank's assets. Your liability, right? That's the bank's assets. Now, given that the debt has to be paid back with interest, but only the principal goes into circulation, the whole system functions like a large Ponzi scheme, because the only way that you can pay your debt plus interest is to earn it from other people who have to go into debt for whatever reason, for consumption, for mortgages, for business development, for infrastructure development, whatever. But people have to keep going into debt. And the system is only stable for as long as it grows. So that's why we have this imperative of always growing the economy, the GDP growth. Even when everybody's satisfied, everybody has everything they need, and maybe they only need to make minor purchases, there's always this imperative for the whole system to grow so that people go more into debt and buy more crap so that more crap can be produced. And the government has to keep going deeper and deeper into debt. That's symptomatic. That's across the world, every government, every nation that has this monetary system in place. And that's pretty much all nations in the world today. Now, what happens is that at a certain point, the system is saturated, right? Everybody maxes out on debt. You don't need more stuff. You don't need to go into debt to buy more stuff. And at that point, the system would begin to implode on itself because it's no longer growing. And at that point, what you need is to expand basically by taking other nations' resources as collateral. Because remember also, you can only grow the credit cycle for as long as you can keep adding healthy money, good collateral into the system. And once everybody's maxed out domestically, there's no further collateral that can be added to keep the system going. Or, maybe it's not enough, maybe it's too marginal. And at that point, if the Middle Eastern countries have plenty of oil, well, why not turn that oil into our collateral, and then our corporations can get into debt with our banks against that oil as collateral. Ditto for GMO crops. Ditto for gold mines, silver mines, coffee, cocoa plantations everywhere. So this banking system creates an incentive for nations that embrace it to become empires. Now, it's not a given that it has to be military expansionism, because in other nations, for example, I grew up in the communist Yugoslavia, same money system, same thing. The government was spending on big monuments, giving people high salaries, employing everybody. And the effect was the same. The system was unsustainable. But in the West, particularly Great Britain and the United States, the system has tended to go towards military interventionism and the expansion of empire. And this is what United States has adopted from its predecessor, which is the British Empire, which, once it began to collapse at the turn of last century, at the turn of the 20th century, 100 years ago or so, the British simply decided to transfer its seat of power to Washington and New York to infiltrate and co-opt the democratic system of governance on the United States, and to help themselves to the wealth and military and diplomatic and political power of the United States to continue expanding their empire and to take all other nations' resources as collateral and to use all other nations' populations as a source of cheap labor. And that's where we're at today. So that's why for them, this logic of let's all get along and trade with each other, for them that doesn't work. They want other nations' collateral so that their money system can keep from imploding.
So, do you think that is what we're seeing with Britain, the United States, and NATO right now? Russia has abundant resources, so they want to balkanize Russia. And because I remember Hillary Clinton said she was at one of these think tanks, and she said it's unfair for Russia to have so many resources that we should take the resources. So
I absolutely agree with the stuff just said. So, and I know what is exactly to think about when those resources. It's a natural richness of the country. The country is located there. So, the other thing is when he talk about the debt. See, before in the let's say 100 years, more than 100 years, it was the slavery. But that slavery didn't disappear. Slavery just now transformed. Now it's not slavery anymore, but it is a debt. Debt to so ordinary people are in debt to banks, to corporations, to institutions. So that is the way how to control people. And again, everything is in that money. Follow the money, and you will see who is really pulling the strings. And it will be London or Washington D.C. or New York, because the stock exchange and some certain areas where ordinary people can't even get in because it's so private that it's more protected than Fort Knox.
Do you think do you think with the situation going on, like in Africa, with Russia supplanting French and NATO and U.S. forces there, and training the African militaries to, and also I saw when they went into Niger, they also took Panzer systems in there, also air defense systems in there. They're transferring them over to the military, and they're training them on this. Do you think that America now is lashing out at Russia? Because if you look at this stuff right here, and you see Russia smashing NATO, the whole of NATO in Ukraine,
Yeah.
I mean, smashing them.
Yeah.
And then you see Russia pivoting and becoming more than a strategic ally with Russia, with China. And now you see Russia and China supplanting the colonial powers in Africa and Latin America. Do you believe that because the empire needs debt to expand, and because without this expansion of debt, it implodes, do you believe that now they're, as I said before, they're setting the world ablaze because they're trying to maintain their hegemony?
Yeah, let's first start with Africa, because during the Cold War, Russia helped African countries to get rid of colonial powers like Portugal, Spain, UK. But that brutal colonial rule with the military turned it into the monetary slavery. So, for instance, France, what they took national reserves, gold reserves from those Central African countries. Not Central African Republic, but those countries which were former French colonies, and they kept the ruling elite on the way that they recognized them as a representative, so they were on the good terms with the French governments to the time, and also because the corruption. But now Russia simply helping African countries to finally break loose from those colonial powers. But Russia is not going to use natural resources, for instance, of Niger or Central African Republic or Chad, because they don't need it. Russia has their own resources unexplored, and they're still exploring stuff, still building the mines and all. So Russia has plenty of that, so they don't need it. But who doesn't have it? France, Belgium, UK, Spain. They have nothing. They have only banks, and they're operating with the banking system. So it's finally time for African people, and I'm quite happy to see that they're getting rid of those neo-colonial chains. Finally, it will be a struggle. It's not going to happen overnight. But I'm expecting a few color revolutions in Africa, some military interventions, but people are not uneducated like before. There are medias. People can get the stuff through the multiple sources, and also they see, for instance, if Chinese companies, they come, they build a factory, they build a road, they build a mine. Of course, they have interest, some economical interest in that, but at least they employ on some normal terms local labor. And now, when you read some Western media, oh yes, it's Russian colonialism or Chinese colonialism. They don't treat people well. What can be worse than how Western powers treat African people? Is there anything worse than that?
Right.
Yeah. So hopefully, those African countries need finally to get independence and really use their natural resources for the benefit of their own people, not for the benefit of business people in the West.
I look at all of this stuff as a picture, a total picture. The Western news presents these different events as separate entities, like the conflagration in Palestine, the revolution in Argentina, where they just put in a pro-Western leader, the pivot to Asia, the trying to balkanize Russia, also the Armenian situation, the Turkish situation, and the Georgian situation. And I look at it all one thing, because as America was getting smashed and is getting smashed in Ukraine, all of a sudden they were trying to put pressure on Russia in Syria. They're trying to put pressure on Russia in Georgia with this foreign agents thing. They're trying to put pressure on Russia in Armenia. And the provocations continue. Do you believe that Russia will finally start striking these depots outside of Ukraine, because the United States continues to escalate with the long-range ballistic missiles, the influx of so-called "quote-unquote" mercenaries, which everybody knows they're foreign special forces
Yeah,
and everything.
yeah.
Do you
Well, I
believe
don't.
fed up?
I don't. Yeah, I don't believe that Russia is going to directly attack those, let's say, warehouses or depots for the foreign weapons. But as soon as they cross the border, they're followed. Ukraine is penetrated with the Russian agents. There is a local from the professional agents to the locals who simply tip off everything. So Russia is doing that patiently. They are waiting until they have multiple independent confirmation, and when they decide, they strike. So they're committing blow after blow for those high-ranking. No, not high-ranking, high important warehouses, and West can deliver the stuff. Yeah, I'm expecting that it will be more ballistic missiles. It will be F-16. It will be maybe even German Taurus cruise missiles. Yes, so be it. Let them come. They're facing not some third world country regarding to the military power. They're facing Russia, and Russia has a goal. Russia is working on this goal meticulously. So they will achieve that. They will get to Dnieper. It maybe not tomorrow, maybe not next year, but they're going to achieve their goals, and they will not stop that. And Russia has the power behind them. Russia is a member of BRICS. There is a China, Iran, North Korea, everyone that the West talk about dictatorship. Of course, those countries are not ideal. They have their bad things. Let's be honest. But at least now we have like a polarized world similar to that was in the Cold War. But during the Cold War, bear in mind, the American economy, U.S. economy was the supreme. U.S. had production, U.S. had the development, the U.S. invested in their own people. As soon as that stuff was shipped, because the greediness of those business owners and the banks, as soon as they put the production out of the states, everything turned into like a service industry based on the fast food and insurance and the used car sales. just to talk that funny stuff. But it is simply not good for the ordinary American people, because ordinary people are sinking. There is no middle class anymore. U.S. lost the mainspring that forced U.S. to be strong country. Now U.S. has only military, but just look at the U.S. military now. The U.S. military 20 or 30 years ago, two completely different stories. And with that woke stuff that they started to push in, and all of those riots, and it will be more and more riots. So, bottom line, for country to be successful, it's need to have the strong base, and strong base is domestic industry and raw material resources. How many of now factories you can see that works in the States? How many? I'm often driving here in the GTA, Toronto area, and everything that I see is just a small, very, very tiny production facilities. Everything is just warehouses and marvelous buildings with the insurance companies, banks, all of that stuff. So no production. And before, Canada at least has some production. I think in the States is even worse, because our production in North America, it was shipped to China. And China, in the beginning, for 10, 15 years, 20 years, they learned. They know how to do the stuff, and they all surpassed everything in the West. And imagine now if some of those people, the Western politicians, talking that they're going to bring production from China. Well, first you need to have a people to do that. In China, for instance, iPhone, just ordinary iPhone, it can be made for, let's say, less than $100. In the States, how much it will cost to do that? Because you will have 75% of management, HR, and all of that stuff doing a lot of things, and it will cost $4,000. Who is going to afford to buy that?
Yeah.
See, countries that lose production, that lose resources, is finished on the long term. It is not like something that's going to happen overnight, but down the road you will see that. Let's say we're talking about generation. Let's say 20, 25 years span.
well, Mike, why does Russia allow America to constant? I know I'm asking from your perspective. Why does Russia allow America to constantly escalate without the return of escalation? And what I mean by this is, everywhere Russia is, or China, or Iran is trying to do something, America does not hesitate to arm people. She does not hesitate to give them intelligence. She does not hesitate to give them political backing or helping to finance here and there. Why, as America boasts about these aid packages that go to Ukraine, why won't Russia just do the same thing in Syria and put her feet to the fire? See, because if America continues to start these little fires around Russia to keep her distracted so that she can bleed her by 1,000 cuts. And I believe that Russia should boomerang that, give us Assad, change the dynamics of the battlefield in Syria. Give Assad what he needs to not only rebuff Israel, but to, if necessary, to help his forces against occupation, and do that all of these areas where you see British and U.S. troops, and that will force them to have to focus on those areas and allocate more resources and more money there, where they can't destabilize Russia as they're trying to do.
Okay, I will quote Napoleon. He said, "Don't interrupt your enemy while he's making mistakes." So Russia is simply doing long-term stuff. So they're not going to do impulsive stuff, just jump, bomb. There is like West. So let's U.S. arsenals. Let them send that weapons. Russia degraded that stuff from 100%, let's say, to now maybe 10% or 5 or even 5% is functional. So don't interrupt them. Let them make mistakes. Let them dig themselves in. So that and Russia is doing a smart thing. They cooperate with China. They cooperate with North Korea, with Iran. But it's not something that is going to happen overnight. It's going to happen slowly but steady. This multipolar world can't be stopped. Rule-based order that some jerks among the Western politicians talk about, it's over. It's gone. So what they have to do that now? Think about like a bunch of dogs that are not really ready or not really capable to attack the big bosses, big animals like tigers, lions, or bears. But they will bark. They will bark all the time. So what they can achieve with that? Yeah, they can create a crisis here and there, but this is not something that happened. Like the time changed. It's not like it's the same situation like 25 years ago. I want to point that Yugoslavia was the test bed experiment, how to try to destroy the country, multi-ethnic and multinational country. And they succeeded with us. They try now to do that with Russia. They will try with China, with Iran, because we're talking, for instance, Iran. Why I said Iran? Iran is not just one nation. Iran is the set of many different ethnic groups. Look what can happen with India. They have, I think, 15 castes. If they try to do that, so many Indian states. So the West will try to implement that balkanization, which was a successful experiment. But people learned the lesson. So it will be very, very hard to do that. Now, who is getting? You mentioned death by 1,000 cuts. Ukrainian military is smashed with 1,000 cuts. So no major blows. Now look what happened with U.S. economy. Billions are going to Ukraine, China. Of course, the majority will be turned back to the military-industrial complex, but ordinary Americans will get nothing. In many U.S. cities, look how many homeless veterans, how many people that lost everything. Drugs, addiction, everywhere. Before, it was, I remember, traveling in U.S., you're going for vacation. Now, people trying to avoid it just because of those crises. And I'm saying U.S. is not New York or L.A. U.S. is where the ordinary people live. And the standard is going down because government is sending billions to foreigners, but that billions that come back to the manufacturing stuff, like manufacturing weapons, coming only to the chosen ones. So they will not be distributed among the ordinary people. With the money dumped on Ukraine, U.S. can solve the problem of homelessness. Maybe just with a fraction of that money. But nobody asks ordinary men, ordinary persons. Ordinary person only need to pay taxes if it can, and if he can't, they will squeeze one or another way for him. So that is unfortunate story. And now, when you mention Argentina, Argentina is no experiment. They got a guy who is I don't know how to politely describe him, but he's trying to do something. And he mentioned, I read a few days ago, I watched some of his statements. I think that he mentioned that the Argentinian economy is going to pop up from the crisis like. I'm going to now to apologize for your viewers, like a fart in the water. So he's comparing that Argentina is going to recover itself like a fart in the water. So economy just going to pop up. It's ridiculous, but he's just a player. He's just a player. He's, I don't know, libertarian, how they call them. We have now the guy who is comedian ruling Ukraine. So what is the next? I mean, yeah. I'm trying to make the conversation interesting with those stuff, but it's something that the guy who is president of the country, he said. And I see somebody put a chainsaw man. Yeah, the guy with the chainsaw, guy with a hammer, but whatever. I mean, it's funny. It's funny. And, but these guys are simply destroying their own countries, and people should learn. I mean, Zelensky is a personality that need to be studied. That need to be studied for a long time, because this is the way how somebody who came from the breeder and pop up, and how that guy is destroying his own country, and how he was actually put as a puppet for the interest of those on the West. And they're going to keep him. They're going to run this war as much as necessary, as much as it takes. So this is incredible what they're doing to that country. I love Ukraine. It's a beautiful country, good people, but stuff what they're doing them now, it's sad, simply sad. And they're not the last. That's the problem. Ukraine is not the last. Some other Ukraine will pop up somewhere else in the world.
Speaking on Argentina, it's amazing how this guy comes into office and he says that he doesn't want to be a part of BRICS after Argentina made they applied for BRICS. He comes into office. He wants to change that. He said he wants to reorientate his country towards the West and the U.S. And he said he does not want super close ties with China. And then in the same breath, he says, China, please bail us out. The Chinese said, okay, listen, we have no problem with you reorienting your country towards the West. But if you're going to do that, we're not going to invest this $300 billion into your economy or so. And then he said, well, hold on. I thought we were friends. Will you please help me? It's crazy. The bizarro world politics is absolutely crazy. They want everything and they don't want to give up anything. And they believe that everybody should just follow suit. And when you follow suit with the American empire, you wind up with nothing.
Yeah. See, there is one quote. I think it's a Turkish proverb. And it's saying something like, when you put a clown into the palace, he does not become the king, but rather the palace become the circus. So that proverb is can be used with some other words, but that is the meaning. So you bring somebody, you bring somebody, and that individual is capable, if with enough support from some circles, to destroy everything.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. And I'm being aware of the time. I know I want to inform the audience that we're going to get Mike back on at another time, but something he has to take care of today. So we'll go about 5 more minutes with him, and then we'll let him go because I don't want him to have to jump from this to something else.
Okay, thanks.
So,
Thanks, Rashid.
but Mike, I want you to listen to this. This goes hand in hand. This is a 2-minute clip. This goes hand in hand with what you were just saying about Zelensky being a puppet and how he's running his country in the ground. And this was, I believe this clip came from at the beginning of the conflict. So I want you to listen to what Colonel McGregor has to say about
Colonel is genius.
Pay attention.
Yeah.
Douglas McGregor, who joins us now. Sir, what's the strategy?
What you're seeing is that the Russians have now driven what is left of the Ukrainian forces, who are taking refuge in population centers, cities, because they have no mobility, no air defense, no air cover, no logistical infrastructure. They are now mingling with the population, much as we've seen in the Middle East. Whenever we drove the Islamists out of business, they ran into cities, used people as shields, the civilian population, and tried to avoid being annihilated. Russian forces, I think, frankly, were too gentle. They've now corrected that. So I would say another 10 days, this should be completely over. But the question is, what is it that Zelensky is going to do? The Russians have made it very clear what they want is a neutral Ukraine. This could have ended days ago if he accepted that. And then they can adjust the borders. But the eastern part of Ukraine is firmly in Russian hands. But again, the Russians are not seizing territory. They're destroying Ukrainian forces. That's their focus.
Colonel, it sounds like you don't approve of Zelensky's stand.
Oh, I think Zelensky is a puppet. And he is putting huge numbers of his own population at unnecessary risk. And quite frankly, most of what comes out of Ukraine is debunked as lies within 24 to 48 hours. The notions of taking and retaking airfields, all of this is nonsense. It hasn't happened.
He's not a hero when he's standing up for himself and his own people? You don't think he's a hero?
No, I do not. I don't see anything heroic about the man. And I think the most heroic thing that he can do right now is to come to terms with reality. Neutralize Ukraine. This is not a bad thing. A neutral Ukraine would be good for us as well as for Russia. It would create the buffer that, frankly, both sides want. But he's, I think, being told to hang on and try to drag this out, which is tragic for the people that have to live through this.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with the colonel. So I simply admire him. He's a genius. He said everything. But what surprised me really is that it was on the Fox, on one of the major mainstream media.
Mm-hmm.
You will not see that on CNN. I mean, CNN it's completely different. I used to have some interviews on BBC, and I basically said what I think, what the situation really is. That they're not calling me back again. So because I told the truth, and absolutely, it's the colonel is right. Ukraine is now in the position that either they're going to accept Russian terms or they're going to disappear.
Now, last question, and this is pertaining to your homeland, Serbia. Why is Serbia trying to enter the European Union when the European Union is bankrupt and they usurp the sovereignty of every nation that comes in there, and they use them as pawns and subject them to American imperialism? Why would Serbia want to be a part of the European Union, especially watching what's going on, this circus, this clown show that is going on right now?
Well, Serbia will never get into European Union because before Serbia get there, European Union is going to disappear. Then countries are just going to become what they were before. It is political decision, and Serbian politicians, they're trying to sit between East and West. Serbia, I think, should join the BRICS, but it will be sanctioned because European Union will not allow to have a BRICS country in Europe. So it's Serbia is country at the crossroads of empires, to call that, and there is always somebody that will put some conditions or whatever, and politicians are simply trying to do that whatever they can. Some of them are sincere, some of them are not. Like in many of those former East European countries, they will simply want to fill their pockets. And you have NGOs, Soros, and all those vultures going around, scavengers, and whenever they set their foot, it's disaster is coming on scales that can be different, but letting them do the stuff in the country freely, it's just an invitation for trouble.
All right. Mike, thank you. I don't want to hold you any longer. We'll get back with each other and bring you back on again when you have a little bit more time. I understand when things pop up, but I appreciate this time that you've given us.
My pleasure.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Bye. Cheers.
Everyone, let's thank Mike for coming and joining us on this platform. Now, listen, we're going to try to do another show later on tonight, and we should have some Patreon or some channel member stuff dropping tomorrow or Friday and Saturday. Okay, so be patient with us. We're working around these bands and all of this other stuff. But we're not going just yet. Let's see what Serious Biz has to say up here. Let's put a quote up. He says, "It's nothing different in Ukraine. Poroshenko was also a billionaire with heavy ties to America." And what's crazy, hey, Serious Biz, and what's crazy about this is Poroshenko made his fortune in Russia. Some of his assets were seized. They were in Russia, and some of the other assets that were seized were in eastern Ukraine at the time, which is now under Russian. It's under the banner of the Russian Federation now. So these people are so corrupt. This is what I continue to tell you. What America does, what the West does, and they've done this in Africa, they've done this in Latin America. How do you think that they've prospered and dominated and ruled? What they do, they send fillers. You know what a filler is, right? They send a few dignitaries or whatever into these countries. They pretend to be concerned about the situation that these countries are in, or the population, which then they say, well, let us help, and they use NGOs, and all of these so-called aid groups to go in there, and they go into these the part of the broken population that is poor or disaffected or dissatisfied with certain policies of the government. And what they do, they start pretending as if they had those people's interests at heart. And so they start cultivating these people, and then they start shaping them into what they believe as future leaders. And they give them the wherewithal and all the resources that is needed to alleviate some of the poverty or some of the hurt. So these people then feel loyal to America, or they want what they believe is the so-called American dream or the Western way of life. And that's once they grow up into that, or once they're brought up into that line of thinking, then it is not so hard for the American spy apparatus then tap into that whenever it's necessary. And then what they do, they find the one who is the least one who would stand on principles, and the least one who would choose nation over Western democracy, right? And then they activate that person. They give them a lot of media cover, a lot of political cover. Then they start putting that name out over and over again. Look at Juan Guaido. You don't hear anything about Guaido. Remember, America says they chose him as the president of Venezuela, said they recognized him as the president, and then they transferred all the assets that Venezuela had in the United States over to so-called Juan Guaido. Do you hear about him? Because every coup that they tried was unsuccessful, because the people in Venezuela got hip to that, and they were like, no, 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 no. So then America tried to bribe the generals and the intelligence agencies. And here's the kick right here. What was crazy is that America was talking about there'll be change in Venezuela, there'll be this and there'll be this, because they thought that they had tapped into the generals and the intelligence agencies, and they did not know that this was what they call a double blind or a double play. The generals and the intelligence agencies, they are loyal to the cause of Hugo Chavez. We know that Maduro is the president, but Hugo lit a fire under these people, and these people started to be loyal to his second in command, who is now the leader of Venezuela. And they were feeding him all of the information that what is his Mike who was the former Secretary of the United States? He was fat and now he's slim. Pompeo, and all of these people were feeding to him, and Pompeo and them, they were saying things like, "We know that there will be change in Venezuela soon," and this and this. And then when the day of the coup, they realized that they had been tricked by the Venezuelan intelligence agency and the Venezuelan military, and that they stood up and they bagged Maduro 100%. When they had egg on their faces after that, the United States then resorted to trying to assassinate the president of Venezuela through a drone attack while he was in front of the public. I think it was a military parade, and the United States tried to attack him and assassinate him in front of Venezuelan people. You see the desperation of the empire. So they tried this. They used this at every step. Whenever they don't get their way, they're like children. You know, have you been around or have you seen spoiled children that when they don't get their way, they act up? Nothing can soothe their ego until they get what they want, even if everything that they've done has not led up to that. They'll kick, scream, fight, throw things, spit, yell, everything to try to get their way, right? But what it takes is a stern parent to put them in their place, put some on their behind a little bit and get them into place. And this is what we're seeing with Venezuela, Iran, Chad, Mali, Burkina Faso, and all of these nations that are now saying enough is enough. No, we don't have the military wherewithal to rebuff you, but what we can do, make it uncomfortable for your military bases in our country so you don't want to move them. We'll bring in your enemy and we'll let them establish a military base about a mile away from your military base, and then we won't allow you outside of your military base, and then we'll invite Wagner or whatever the new name is into our country to protect the leaders and all of the organizations and instruments of government. See, this is what nations weren't doing before. America could go and assassinate, go overthrow, use their military to cause color revolutions, and then they could just usurp authority from the legitimate people. But now when people get mad at America and they want to remove them from their country, they invite China, they invite Russia in, and then they allow them, like Djibouti. Djibouti is one of the only African countries to have, I think it has about 8 or 9 foreign military bases, and they put China's base right next to the U.S. base so that the U.S., if they thought about getting mad with them, they could not overthrow the legitimate authorities of that nation. Other nations are doing just that. And you hear the anger. Russia is trying to colonize Africa. China is trying to colonize Africa. Isn't that something? The colonizer pointing the finger at somebody else, claiming that they want to colonize. That's projection. That's what the UK, that's what Germany, that's what all of these nations are doing. To give you an example of what I'm talking about, let's go back to Sudan. The Sudanese people, huge country. I mean, huge. I believe before balkanization, I believe Sudan was just short of 1 million square miles. Just short of that. Huge country, right? The United States, when they did these studies about the oil in Darfur, guess what started popping up? Free Darfur. Because they found huge amounts of oil, gas, and other untapped resources there. And the United States wanted to take Darfur from the Sudanese people. So that when that didn't work, guess what they did? They stoked up tensions, and they started an ethnic strife. So they started a South Sudan and a North Sudan. And guess what? So prior to this, you know how America says, well, we're about democracy and the will of the people. Well, the will of the people did not really want a vote, an independent vote on South Sudan. But the Sudanese government obliged them because of the maximum pressure that the United States was putting on the Sudanese people through sanctions and the Sudanese government and the Sudanese military. So guess what happened? And Germany, you're about to get called out too. So while everybody was looking at America and Great Britain or the UK as they were employing their normal tactics to divide and conquer. Germany was sitting back in the cut, doing what Germany does, doing what NATO countries do when they want to advance an agenda. So Germany started printing, listen to this good, they started printing the Sudanese currency, the South Sudanese currency, 2 years before there was ever an agreement on a vote on whether South Sudan should stay a part of Sudan. Isn't that something? The Germans started printing the currency of the so-called future nation 2 years before there was even an agreement on voting, not an agreement to partition the country, but an agreement on voting whether there should be a partition of the country. These people are crazy as hell. They want to boganize and steal off the resources. That's what they want to do. And they have done that. They've employed that in Africa at unlimited scales. They've done it in Latin America at unlimited scales. They're doing it, and we see it in Asia. There was no South and North Korea. It was just Korea. But America deemed it her interest to go in there and try to impose a Western-backed government in Korea. Look at Japan, still under occupation. Look at the situation around that area. Look at the Philippines under occupation. Then let us go to Europe. If the Europeans can't see that America is using them to try to maintain her hegemony, then they're going to suffer the same fate as America. Look at, and the examples are in Georgia. The examples are in the former Yugoslavia. The example is in Ukraine. Look at in Central Asia, Armenia. Look at what they're trying to do in Central Asia with Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan. Everywhere she goes, there's a trail of death, destruction, dissatisfaction, disease, and a desire for something new. Isn't that what the fourth horseman in the apocalypse was supposed? Everywhere he went, it was pestilence, death, destruction, right? If you don't believe that America is that fourth horseman, you don't know it. You just don't know what's really going on, because her actions and the consequences of her actions add up to that. It is. It is amazing. And Israel doesn't get a free pass on this too. This is why I asked Mike about why won't Russia put more weapons into the hands of the Syrian Arab Republic's armed forces. Because look at this. They have the S-300s, but Russia won't allow them to use them. Well, what good is that for me to have them if you won't allow me to use them? Iran, bring me in your Bavar 373. Bring me in your Qadar system. Give me something to rebuff these people. And Russia should really want this, and I'm going to tell you why. Because when the conflict started in Georgia, the Republic of Georgia, there were Israeli advisors, Israeli trainers, and Israeli arms that were used in the offensive against Russian peacekeepers. And there were advisors that were making policy decisions. Listen to me good. They weren't just there whispering into Saakashvili's ear. They were actually making policy decisions on the next moves dealing with Russia. Why won't Russia return the favor? Look at what's going on in Ukraine. If Israel deployed or sent radars to try to detect Russian missile launches. They have Israeli equipment there, just like they have U.S. and Western equipment there. Nobody talks about that. They have Israeli trainers there. Why will I let you start a fire in my yard and not start one in yours? Since that's the route you want to go, okay, two can play this game, and we'll see who breaks first. We'll see who screams uncle first. We'll see who bows down first. You're not going to be allowed to do these things to me without any retribution. That's not how. See, they're lucky that I don't own a country, or that I'm not in control of a country, because the stuff that these nations take, I cannot do it. I couldn't stomach it, because first of all, I don't fear the nations. I don't fear the leaders of America or Western world, and I don't fear their threats. The only person that I fear is God Almighty. That's it. And I don't so much fear him in a way that you may think fear is. I fear him with admiration and love and dedication. So I don't care what you say you're going to do to me. You may be powerful, America. You may be powerful, NATO, but God is all powerful. And I'm going to make my way with him. And I'm going to do what's incumbent upon what a leader is supposed to do in a position of leadership. Defend my people and my country at all costs. Not allow these people to do what they're doing. See, this politics of the so-called rules-based order has seeped into the minds and in the hearts of all of these leaders. They just allow America to do anything. America, Joe Biden, we're going to give another aid package to Ukraine. This time, under secret, we've already transferred attackers. Yeah, Russia intelligence had already known that, but that's beside the point. Sometimes you want an example. Sometimes. When one of these hypersonic missiles strays out of Ukrainian airspace and hit a base by mistake, and you start screaming, then I'll throw it back in your face and say, hey, I'm not apologizing for that. It strayed. That's part of war. If you were not involved, if you stopped transferring weapons, you wouldn't even have to worry about that because the war would come to an end. But don't scream about getting hit by a rock when you're barking at me and chasing me down the street. The first law of nature tells me to preserve my life, my nation's life. And if you don't enact that, what good is life? Huh? Let's go to the chat real quick. Let me see something. I see something. Serious Biz says, and stole all their gold, seized assets like gas and oil owned by the Venezuelans, mainly in Texas and Louisiana. And did you know, and I'm going to show you, you're right, Serious. And I was talking about that. But I want you to think about this. You know, across the U.S., there were Tom Thumbs everywhere. The oil the gas that Tom Thumb had was refined Venezuelan oil. Venezuela has what they call that sweet crude. You know, that is the good stuff, right? Way better than Arabia, right? And so when they sanction and seize assets, guess what's happening? They have Cumberland now. They're starting to change the names of the stations that use Venezuelan oil. And this is the crazy thing. When America got in trouble, guess what she did? Tried to negotiate with Venezuela. We'll give you back some of your assets if you do this, if you stop Iran from trading with you, if you help us with Russia, blah, blah, blah. If you don't join on with China and this, you stole from me. You're holding my assets hostage, and then you want to negotiate with me and tell me you'll give me some back if I turn my back on the people who stood up with me and stood beside me when you were trying to destroy me? This is what I'm saying. These people are lunatics to even have an idea like that, to go to somebody after you robbed, raped, and pillaged them. And you're holding their assets ransom and then say, I got a deal for you. I have a deal for you. Not all, but I'll give you some. That's exactly what they did to Iran. And here it is. They stole Iranian assets, right? They seized them, they stole them, like they've stolen Russian assets, right? And then they say, we'll unfreeze some of your assets if you don't get a nuclear weapon, if you don't move towards higher enrichment and this. And Iran stayed true to that. I would not have. I'm going to tell you why. And it'll make sense to anybody with sound judgment, rational thinking, or who is just fair. Why should you worry about me getting one when you got thousands? How can you dictate to me what I should and should not have when you have an armed forces full of them, and then you are threatening nations with the use of these weapons, and you are the only nation on planet Earth to ever use these weapons? If you don't get out of my face, I'll slap the taste out of your mouth, coming to me, telling me that I can't acquire what you already have. Come on. America doesn't want Russia or China's allies to get a rock, a slingshot, or a bow and arrow. They want to supply all the weapons to whom they deem as strategic allies or something like that. No, it doesn't work like that. And Russia and China should be more mindful of this. If I arm Iran, if I arm Venezuela, if I arm Syria, then they can then put pressure on the empire, which means that the empire will have to spend more money, focus more of its attention on other areas, which will allow me to build up faster and stronger. And then if we do go face to face, guess what? Your treasures, your coffers are empty. So you cannot initiate and have a sustained war. And the only war that you can initiate is a nuclear war, and that's one you can't win. So why should France talk about Iran should not get a nuclear weapon? First of all, let me go back. Let me backtrack for a minute. France, the UK, and all of these other guarantees of the so-called JCPOA, we couldn't have negotiated that. You cannot negotiate and tell me what's in the best interest of the security of my people. That's not happening. Especially when you have an armed forces full of nuclear weapons. Not one of you. Britain has 250. Israel has 200. France has 275 or 300. China has anywhere from 300 to 1,000. Russia has the largest supply of nuclear weapons on the planet Earth. America has 3,000 or 4,000. How in the hell can you negotiate with me to not have what you have so that I can defend myself? That's not how that's going to happen. I think people need to get this Eurocentric, Western-dominated, rules-based mentality out of their mind, because it's a detriment to their progression, it's a detriment to the growth of their people, and it's a detriment to peace and stability the world over. Now, think about this, and I'm going to go back to the chat in a sec. I want you to think about this. See, the reason I talk to you like this is because nobody else does. The reason I bring up these points, because nobody else does. They think it's just a gimme that America can dictate, or that the West can dictate, or that this nation shouldn't have. And they never point the finger of why those nations do have. Right? Now, I want you to think about this. America is aggressive against Russia. She's aggressive against China. Two nations that have the capabilities to destroy her completely, right? Why would Iran and Venezuela settle for not having nuclear weapons? America is already rambunctious and arrogant against Russia, the largest nuclear power on the planet Earth. Thank you, son. My son just brought me a package in here. Thank you, son. But they are very forceful against Russia. And Russia has the largest nuclear arsenal on planet Earth with the most powerful nuclear bombs. And they have the delivery systems to match with the Serbian and all these other stuff. The SS Satan. All these missiles that have unlimited range that can strike anywhere, and they don't even have to go over the North Pole. Russia's new weapons can go over the south, under the South Pole, and they cannot be detected by U.S. radars. So now, American military leaders and politicians know that. The intelligence services know that, and yet they still provoke Russia in Ukraine, in Armenia, in Georgia, in the Caucasus, in the Balkans, in Central Asia, in the Pacific, in Middle East, in Africa, in Latin America. And you telling me that Iran should forego getting a nuclear weapon? Huh? Man, listen. You say, well, America will attack. Okay. I'll hold a hostage. You attack me, Israel disappears. I might not have the delivery system right now to hit you, but I got the delivery system to hit your child. And we know that parents will prefer that you kill them than their children, right? So now we have a standoff. And now we have a new dynamic where you can't threaten me anymore. You can't impose this on me anymore. You cannot come to me talking down to me. From this point on, there would have to be some type of level of equality and a level of respect. You understand? Do you think that America and Great Britain would be going, and France would be doing what they're doing if they didn't have a nuclear arsenal? Huh? Do you believe that? So they are bold, brash, and they're brandishing their nuclear weapons. Just the other day, the French president had one of his military advisors on the French television saying that we should not be afraid of Russia. We have 300 nuclear weapons. Russia should be afraid of us and NATO. From one of the so-called guarantees of the JCPOA, the nuclear deal. Then you hear Britain talking brash about their nuclear arsenal. And you know, every day of every week of every month of every year, somewhere in the United States, a politician or a leader or a military person is talking about the military power of America with her conventional and nuclear arsenal. So if that is the case, then how the hell can you dictate to me what I should and should not have for my security? Your word doesn't matter to me when it comes to that. The only words that matter to the security of my nation and my people is coming from my people. That's what it should be. You understand? And if you want to go to war about this, then hey, it is what it is. People say, well, America would crush you. Okay. But the example set would be worth it. See, I think a lot of people are so scared of death that they don't think about living. Do you understand what I'm saying? They're so scared about the ramifications of being independent and the threats of the Western world that they don't think about the livelihood, the living of their people and their nation into the future. So if you attack me, what if your attack is not successful and you employ nuclear weapons against a person or a nation that is trying to acquire them? Then guess what that initiates? Global powers to step in with their nuclear arsenal. So now the whole world is up in flames. But guess what? You will no longer dictate. You will no longer have these nations on their knees. You will no longer be able to demand this and that of other nations, which you will not do yourself. If America is so concerned about nuclear weapons, give up your arsenal. Since you were the first to have them, and since you are the only one to use them, show the example by getting rid of them. And then we'll stop pursuing nuclear capability. You, France, Great Britain, Israel, China, and Russia, give up yours. Then we'll follow suit. But until then, we're going to go and we're going to move towards acquiring the same thing that you have because you said it's for your national security. Then what makes your national security more important to me than my national security? Think about that. These people don't. Oh, boy, I tell you what. The manner of politics of today, I just can't get it. I just cannot comprehend the lunacy of these people. You're going to cower me? No, that's not how life works. See, listen, when you first put this, God first, right? Everything else, second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth, God first, all right? Then if you're a leader of your nation after, right? When you put that, you look at your policies and you say, okay, this will benefit this, to hell with the outside world. And if that means your death, so be it. You're going to die anyhow. Why don't you die doing something that's worthwhile? Huh? No man is here forever. So make that count. And when they kill you, when you, like they did Che Guevara, when they have you bound and chained and they're about to kill you, and they ask you your last words, tell them your only regret is that you only had but one life to give. And if you could do anything over again, you would pray to God to give you 999 more lives to give in cause of your people and your nation. Stop being punks. This society has softened so many people. The Western world has made men feminine and made the women hard. We don't even protect the women no more. Do you not know how impressive a woman is? Man, let me tell you something. Now I'm going to talk to you for a second, okay? Yeah. You got farmers out in the field looking at their crops, taking up their crops, making sure that there's nothing out there that is eating the crops, because the crops is the future. It's the way to feed your nation, for your nation to progress, right? The woman is the field to produce the nation. If you don't get off your behind and protect your woman, man, I'm telling you, man, this is crazy, the way this is. Y'all are punks. I'm not talking to my art. I'm just talking in general. The people of the West have become sissified. And the problem about it is that it's no longer acceptable to say sissified. Well, I'm going to say it's sissified. Strike me. Ban me. All of that stuff. But I'm going to speak the truth, regardless to whom or what. You can like it. You can dislike it. But guess what? The world will still rotate, even as you're mad or if you're happy. Man, I see I'm a different breed. I remember my mentor. This is my mentor. His name Saladin, like the great. Matter of fact, he was named after the great warrior Saladin Mahdi Muhammad. That's what his name was. And he would teach me about philosophy and geopolitics and life, right? And he would always, these men have to be men. Before you can ever be a true and a good leader, you've got to recognize that you're a man, and then you've got to accept the responsibility that is inherently a man's responsibility. Regardless if it made everybody else mad, you're supposed to be able to stand on your square, even if you alienate everybody. And that's what I'm talking about. The leaders of the world today, they're punks. They're punks. The aspiring leadership of the day, they're punks. They're sissified. Because they don't tell you, they don't call an ace and a spade a spade. It's always going around in circles, always in circles, never addressing the problems. Well, how in the hell can you get an answer if you never address the problem? How can you come to some type of solution if you never employ the mathematics that is needed to come to a solution? If you don't do that, guess what happens? The world spins out of control as it is now. And we go closer and closer and closer to the abyss, as it is now. And you see the breakdown of civic and social society, right? As it is now. And we see war and the threat of more war, as it is now. And you want me to accept this way of governance? I'm not sissified. So I don't need to be in no gay clubs. You understand me? I'm a man. And I'm going to do, by the grace of God, what's incumbent upon me as a man. And that's what these leaders should be like. I don't have any problem with anybody unless they make a problem with me. And that would be the same if I was a leader. Man, I'm telling you, it's a different, these people are different from me. And if you think I'm some, I should have met my pops. And you know, in my whole life, I had never heard my father raise his voice ever. And my mom, she said my pop had never raised his voice, but when he said something, he meant it. See, and he wouldn't tell you 3 or 4 times. He'll tell you, and that was it. And that's how he dealt with everybody. So when people talk about my father, God bless the dead, when they mention him, they talk about that. And they say one thing about John. My father's name was John. My brother's name is John. My grandfather, my father's father was John, and his father was John. All right. So listen, my father, he would tell you something, and people would say, one thing about John is if he said something, he meant it. Nobody had to have it. You didn't have to go into all these, but what did he mean by this? Or what? Blah, blah, blah. He said what he meant and meant what he said. Same as me. I'm going to say what I mean and I'm going to mean what I say. And I'm not trying to alienate anybody. I'm not trying to demonize a particular faction or people or something. I'm just telling you that we have got to get back to the basics. This sissified society and the way they govern have taken the onus and taken the focus off God. And when you take your focus off God, you lose everything. And to prove what I'm saying, they're losing their world right now. They're losing economically. They're losing politically. They're losing culturally. They're losing socially. They're losing technologically. They're losing geopolitically and militarily. I don't want that type of governance. I don't want that type of culture. When I got to sit and talk to my boy, you want to be a girl? Well, that's fine. Get you one of your mom's dresses. No. I'm going to talk to my son and say, listen, and this is an example. My son is as man as I am, believe me. Son, listen, if you're having any feelings like that, let's discuss them and let's see if we can find an answer in God's word. Be it the Holy Quran or the Holy Bible. Let's see if we can find an answer for it. And let's see if we can do something that will make you manlier. Because the world has become so sissified, nobody speaks truth to power. You know that? And why do you think they suppress my numbers? Why do you think they throw me off? Why do you think they block me? Because they know when you're here and you're drinking this water, it's straight without a chaser. We don't put sugar in it. We don't put alcohol in it. We don't put a lemon in it. We give you pure water because water is life. And if you tamper with it, you're tampering with life, right? So let's go to the chat real quick before we go off. Let's see. Hi. Serious Biz says, Rashid spitting all facts. Super hot Joe. Super hot. I like that. Super hot Joe. As an African of 22 years old, I agree with you. Well, first of all, let me tell you something. I'm an African too. But I'm American. I live in America. But I originated, you see? So we have a lot in common. But what I'm trying to say is that under the rule of this rules-based order, at one time they just corrupted black, brown, red, and yellow. Now they're corrupting white. You understand? That's why I often bring up Orban and all of that stuff like that, because I want the people to understand, even though I have different views, right is right and wrong is wrong. If that man wants his country to be white and Christian, what's the problem with that? If you don't go to the country if you didn't like it. You understand? I don't, man, I'm telling you, I'm different, but I'm honest. You can agree with me or not agree with me. I just say when it happens, then treat the other nations like Zimbabwe or other nations the same way. Don't treat them different and have a different standard because they're black. If they want to be all black, then don't go there. If you got a problem with it. If a person has a restaurant and does not want me to come in and eat, I'm not finna pick at this restaurant. That's his. Let me go start my own restaurant and produce what I want. That's what a man would do. Man, let's see. Let's see. Yeah, Serious Biz says this right here. Wait, hold on, let me go back. Sincere Sentinel of Sentience and Sapiens gave me thumbs up and the peace back to you and thumbs up to you. Serious Biz says, man, listen, this is the stuff that every American should be knowing. Hey, I'm telling you, growing up, I remember in high school about 30-some years ago, even when I would go hang out with my friends and stuff, I would have a dictionary with me. This is no lie. My mom is watching. She would verify. She could, if you say something, she'll put it in the comment. So I would have a dictionary. My mom bought me she had me a thesaurus. She had me a dictionary. She had me all of these books. And she also had me pocket dictionaries and thesauruses. So sometimes when the time would pass, I would just read. You know, you're somewhere and you're killing time, I would just read. And I always had an affinity with history and geopolitics. And Saladin put everything in place for me because he used to always, we would watch all kind of documentaries and he would drill me and say, what was the secret thing in here? What did they say but didn't say? And we would go over it. And if I didn't get it, he would tell me we got to watch it again. And we would watch it until I got it. I'm serious. So I think that the way of learning sucks today. If what is in history offends you, then we got to ban it from the books. Think about that. We got to ban it from the books. I got a lot of flack by this, by YouTube and other people in an organization that I shall not say the name of right here because they might just deplatform me. But when I brought up Israel, I got a lot of flack. I even got suspended like 2 weeks. One of the suspensions was live on the air while I was doing the show. If you go back and look through some of the show, you'll see me getting suspended off air, okay, while I was on air. So I brought this up and I didn't bring it up per se because of some ethnic group or or something like that. I brought it up as an example, as I always do. I bring up pertinent examples that you can relate to, right? So I said this right here. When you talk about Israel, they talk about you being anti-Semitic. Even if you're giving facts and points, even if you're not talking about you're not talking about exterminating, you're not talking about killing them, you're not talking about mistreating them, but what you're talking about is the extermination of other people that they're committing and the mistreatment of other people. And so I brought up this fact. I said, isn't it ironic? And I specifically pointed out to Europe, because this is in Europe specifically. Isn't it ironic that you can burn the Holy Quran? You can talk bad about Prophet Muhammad. You can talk bad about Jesus and question Jesus' legitimacy. May the peace and blessings of God be upon both of them. But what's sacred in the eyes of the politicians is questioning the Holocaust. You can't do that without jail time. That shows you their priorities. You can question God. You can question the men and women of God. But how dare you question a so-called event that took place? This is what I'm talking about. The Western world, the people, the governments, they're insane. So you're telling me that the Holocaust and those people sit higher than God and his prophets and messengers? Man, if you don't get the hell out of here with that foolishness, well, I'm going to defend Jesus, Prophet Muhammad, Abraham, and all of the rest of them. And I'm going to defend it with truth. No? You're not going to talk about Jesus on this show bad. You're not going to talk about Prophet Muhammad on this show bad. You're not going to talk about any other men of God. You're not going to even call into question God's legitimacy, because I know it's real in my life. And I know how I came to that equation. But you can't question that. You can't question COVID. You can't question the policies of the government. You can't question the elections, but you can question the legitimacy of God. You make that make sense. Huh? Sincere Seminole says he's definitely telling it like it is right now. Couldn't agree more. Serious Beer says exactly the point. Right on, Rashid. And Perseverance Chameleon says they want all the hegemony without any of the risks. They want guaranteed subjugation. Boom. We have with us another mic drop moment with Perseverance Chameleon. This is what I'm talking about. Think about that. Have y'all ever thought about that? I know a lot of you haven't. You can't question COVID. You can't question the vaccines. You can't question the legitimacy of the U.S. elections. You can't question the Holocaust. You can't question the Jews' so-called right to Palestine, but you can question the legitimacy of the Creator. You can question the legitimacy of Jesus and Prophet Muhammad. Man, I tell you what, if that's the rules-based order, take your rules that is based on this foolishness and stick it where the sun don't shine. On that note, remember to join us later as we try to come back with you today on this platform if we get a chance to. Remember that I love you if you love truth. I love you with all my heart. But even with that said, the love that I have for you will always pale in comparison to the love that my God, Savior, and Redeemer has for you. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, stay righteous. Hey, mama, your baby boy loves you more than life. Deuces, everybody. We're out of here. Thank you again.